Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another speed build. Today we are back in Chestnut Ridge and I am building a horse training school because I thought that would be a fun little home business thing to try with the Sims 4 businesses and hobbies. I still have quite the list of things that I want to try with the new expansion pack. So this is another one of those, and as you can see there is a little house shape that has popped up on the lot and also a barn shape, which I do end up shrinking because I don't know what I was thinking with this enormous fat barn, but it just does not work. It did not look right with the roofing and I couldn't do it, so I did shrink it, but I think it ends up being really cute. It is a red barn, so I end up calling it the Red Barn Horse School, and that is the name on the gallery. So if you like what you see and if you want to download it from the gallery and use it in your own game, you can check it out. My gallery ID is MissChrisBuilds. And also please like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, because I try to put up as many of these each month as I possibly can, and I really appreciate the support. And yeah, I'd really like to hit the 300 subscriber goal that I have for myself, just because I think that would be really fun. So here we are in the barn, just placing down some horse beds and some pillars. I wanted to put in some spandrels and some fencing. I wanted also to keep it very accessible for the horses. I wanted them to be able to get in and move around easily, get to the beds to lay down, also get to the water troughs and the hay troughs so they could eat and hang out and relax. Ignore that black wall. I don't know what happened. It was just a lighting glitch. It did end up going away, so I just kind of ignored it for long enough for it to go away on its own. And there also ends up being a second level to this barn, which you will see later on. I don't think I decorate it until the very end, but I decided to make like a little picnic space up there with one of the blankets from Lovestruck, and then a bunch of hay bales, both debug live edit and also the functional ones that act as seats, so that maybe your Sims can go up there and have a little roll in the hay or something, or just a nice wholesome little picnic. Who knows? Whatever your style is. Here you'll see a little view of the entire field itself, because we have some horse jumps, we have some barrels to practice barrel racing, and then we have a little offshoot of the barn over here, and this ends up being the covered space where the classes are held. So I had my Sims teach classes here, and they had circular tables from Horse Ranch, and they were able to have pretty successful classes. The only thing is I didn't notice any of the Sims riding the horses. Most of the mentoring came from the horses themselves. So the horses would practice on the jumps and the barrels themselves, and my Sim would go over to them and I could offer mentoring to the horse, but it would just be like a couple second conversation with a horse, and that would be it. There was nothing like I couldn't have my Sim ride that horse to give them mentoring, and I also couldn't have the Sims who were taking the classes ride their horses so that I could mentor. So that was a little difficult. I did manage to figure it out somewhat. Sometimes with the horses it would work and it would tick off the box for mentor for 30 minutes. And other times it would not. I think I just had to continually select mentor over and over and over again on the horse until it had been 30 sim minutes. So I don't know. It was a little weird, but it still worked out in the end, and I still think that it is a nice little option to have, even if you just place the household in this lot and then set up the business and walk away from it, go back to your active household, and then come here with their horse. You could still get all of the same training, and you could be the one that gets the mentoring so that everybody can get skills here, both the human Sim and also the horse. But I hope that would work out. I haven't tried that part of it yet, because pretty much as soon as I got done with this build, I went straight to the new Simsy show, and I wanted to make sure that I got that done in time. So hopefully I will have that one up before the shell tours, and also I will include a link at the bottom of the description box here for Little Simsy's Twitch stream, because all the month of May she's doing a St. Jude fundraising streams every single day to help raise money for St. Jude, and she has been doing all kinds of hard work and all kinds of fun streams, and I've been having a really nice time. So I would love for more people to join us over there. I think right now, what did we hit today? I was watching earlier today when she was streaming, and I think we are above I think we're almost at 440,000. Yeah, 440,000 raised so far for the month of May. I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that because I was only watching half and also making dinner and doing family stuff. So kind of multitasking, if you will. But I have been really enjoying myself. So I'll include the link to her Twitch channel and also to the Tiltify page for the fundraiser if you would want to go check that out from there. But I wanted to mention it on here because the next build that's going up will be the shell challenge submission video that I'm putting up, because I always do that for all of Little Simsy's shell challenges. And I would like to do more for other creators as well that put up shell challenges. So I will try to do that in the future. Here you'll see I have come up with the basic shape of the home. I was trying to really go for that ranch style home. I really wanted them to have a nice big front porch area. There also ends up being a small back porch area with some skill building items. And then there's a little uncovered like patio space in the backyard, because there's a very tiny backyard. Most of this lot is front yard. So there's a tiny little backyard, and that ends up having the little stone eating area with like a picnic table and a grill. And then there's some planter boxes, and it just looks really cute. So you'll see that again towards the end. Most of this video is trying to come up with the structure of the build itself and make sure that it fits in with the world of Chestnut Ridge. And I really enjoy adding these big fireplaces on the sides of the houses because it just fits so nicely in this area. And it does get cold in Chestnut Ridge. It does snow. So having a fireplace is a really good option to help cut heating costs for the Sims, because I think that's important too. And they are trying to run a business after all. They probably want to cut costs where they can. But over here in the front, we have a nice large porch, and I'm pretty sure on either side I just end up putting some benches and I think some music on one side and just like little spots to sit. Not really anything too fancy. Also not included in the speed build video itself because I almost forgot until the very end. Behind the barn I end up putting a little outhouse so that the customers have somewhere to use the bathroom and wash their hands, because that is very important, and I don't want them going into the home to use the bathroom. I have already encountered that customers who are able to enter the home to use a shared bathroom in there tend to wander outside of their boundaries a little bit, if you will. So we didn't want to have to deal with that. Here I'm adding some floor tiles so that I could put on a trim between the first and second levels of the home. And then I also added a little cover on the porch, which you won't see here because I didn't realize that I hadn't done that yet until the end. But I also add this lovely little trim all the way around. I really tried to kind of frame it in with all of the columns and all of the trims because I thought that that was important. I thought it really gave that, like, you know, built-in look, like it was built this way on purpose. So maybe they bought it and it was smaller and they added onto it, so they had to add the trim themselves. And then I did use the brown roof trim for all of the roofing and the swatch that came with Horse Ranch also for both roofs. And then the interior of the main house was giving me a hard time, but I did decide on this staircase right as soon as you enter the home, and then there ends up being, I believe, 3 bedrooms upstairs. There's one for the parents, there's one for a toddler, and then one for the teenage daughter. So I think that the teenage daughter is a gamer / streamer. When she's not at high school, she is either gaming or streaming or planning her channel. She's all about it. So her room is outfitted with a lot of comfy gamer kit and a lot of high school years. And the toddler room, I actually got to use the new nursery kit that came out, like, I don't know, a few months ago. I haven't really gotten to dive into that kit yet, so I really wanted to use it in this build. I thought that would be fun. And then coincidentally, when I had reached my builder's block, I was downstairs working on like the kitchen, and the kitchen clutter kit came out, so I had to quickly go scoop that up. I end up using that in the kitchen as well. I'm not sure if I used any of the restoration workshop in here because it didn't really apply to any of the spaces that I was decorating or the Sims I was decorating for. but I did use a lot of it in my next build, so you will see that later on if you have not gotten a chance to really look at that stuff already. But here you'll see we have a little entryway with 2 arches, and there also ends up being a tiny bathroom behind the stairs. In the kitchen, we use a lot of Home Chef Hustle in this yellow tone. I just liked the way that it kind of offset all of the dark wood, and then I also used this bar from the Party Essentials kit. That's right, it like doesn't roll off the tongue, but that bar came with Party Essentials kit. And I also end up putting like a little seating area over there for hanging out. There ends up being a little island for some dining, and then I did a little tiny bump out for the counters so I could put more clutter on that half wall, which I thought would come in handy. And that was before I even knew that the kitchen clutter kit was coming out. I was completely out of the loop. Apparently they announced it a while ago, and I completely forgot about it. So I'm glad that I added that little half wall so we could put some more clutter on top of that. We also have the long table that came with horse ranch, so I definitely wanted to use that with the horse ranch chairs, also a high chair. And then I used the same yellow upper head cabinets, the new base game tile for the kitchen on the walls, and then I also added a little living room set in here before I reached my builder's block point, because that did happen. It was starting to just all look the same to me, and I couldn't figure out why. So we have the horse ranch fireplace, as well as the couch and the love seats. There's the TV above the fireplace, and then we have the desk area over here with just a simple desk chair. I didn't want it to be too crazy. I believe I also add the bookshelves in later from the Crystal Creations stuff pack, and I didn't end up liking the color that I chose on those, so I do end up changing it later on, but I don't think you'll probably even see that. I'm pretty sure I did that off camera. And you'll also see that I was finishing up the basics in the kitchen. We're adding some more of these shutters that I put all on the outside windows. I thought that was important. Then completely changing up the windows in the kitchen for a bunch of these ones. And over here where the bar is, I wanted to add a bigger kind of statement window. So I kind of pieced 2 windows together, and then I added a little shelf piece. It's not really a shelf. It's actually a roof adornment piece that came with cottage living in this dark wood tone, but I just kind of lined it up so it looked like a really large windowsill. And then what I did was I took the bar and I put it right up against there, so it kind of looks like it's all one piece. And that also allowed me to put more clutter on top of the bar as well, because I wanted to add some like decanters and flasks and stuff. I wanted it to look like a fully fleshed out bar. And then we have more of this fencing going in. I was debating on fully fencing it in, but then I thought it wasn't really necessary, and it's such a large lot. It would really be a shame to just fence the entire thing in. So I only put in spots of fencing, and then in between that I just put some large bushes. And then over here back in the barn we're adding these very large windows, obviously with the classic barn shutters. I just thought they looked so nice. And then some bars on these windows here, obviously to keep the horses safe. You know, you don't want glass everywhere. And then out here in the little lessons area, I did make sure to keep the tables inside the boundaries of the whiteboard, and I added some lighting. And then I believe I add some posters to the wall and some decorations to the wall, also some lights from Horse Ranch. And then I think I add some flower beds all around that as well, because it needed a little bit of framing, and also some pathways. Wanted to make sure there was a long pathway that went from the front entryway all the way to the house and also to the barn. And I am aware that it looks a lot like the letter Y from Yellowstone. That was not intentional. I don't even watch that show, but I do know what that symbol is. And I did not mean for it to look like that, but it is really funny to me now looking back at it. And then I also do continue this pathway back to the backyard area where there is a spot to sit and have a little picnic type thing. I thought that that was a nice touch, and you'd want all your pathways to be very well distinguished. Of course, we have more landscaping also, so you'll see a bunch of that changing and being added on all throughout this video. But now we are up here above the barn area, and we're going to add this little, I guess it's a mezzanine level or something, but I did want to have a big open space down below to the rest of the barn where the horses will be. But up here is just kind of the seating area / storage area, little date spot if you want to have that My cat has decided to come visit, so if you hear any purring, that is him. My apologies if he's a very loud purrer. Yes, you were. But we are adding some more lighting into the barn and just a couple finishing touches. I didn't want it to have all of those little modern saucer lights, so I got rid of them and went with more of these lanterns. It's a tiny bit dark in here, but I still think you can see very, very nicely, and I think it came across really well. So up here at the very top, though, we are adding these hanging light bulbs because I thought that fit really nice. It was just rustic enough, but it didn't have to be those big chandeliers that are hanging below. I thought having too many of those was kind of overkill. Now we're on the side and the back of the barn just working on some landscaping, just adding some trees and bushes. And here I am finishing up this pathway that I was talking about before so that everybody can have a nice fleshed out area to like walk around when they're exploring the property, because it is quite large. And I really love these low-lying bushes that I have lined up on all of the flower beds, because they really do help with framing in everything. And when I add the terrain paint, it's just very easy to like blend everything in. Also added some patches of overgrown grass all throughout, because I thought that was, obviously that's going to happen. And then we have some posters over here going in, some wall decals, and I also have these two little saddle displays. Like maybe she uses those to show how you put the saddle on your horse, what's most comfortable. It's like a little demonstration thing. Obviously that's not true, but you can pretend that it is. And I also add a debug tractor because I thought that was nice. We have some debug planter boxes over here just to kind of throw some stuff in. I was going to put some debug and live edit plants in there, but I thought they actually just looked nice by themselves, kind of empty. I also threw in some debug live edit hay bales and some bags of fertilizer. I was actually thinking maybe that's more like horse feed or something, but I enjoyed those being there. And of course, some red lanterns to, for the Red Barn Horse School. I thought it was good to have everything be very on brand. And then here are some of these very long paths of rocks. Those came with debug and live edit from Horse Ranch. I believe I use some of them as well on the path leading down the letter Y shape all the way to the front, and I had to kind of play around with them because some of those rock paths are very straight and some of them are just curved extremely circular, so getting them to line up with the path that I made is not 100% going to work. But obviously that's where you have to take the eraser tool and go back through and try to make it work with the terrain paint instead. So here's a little bit of that footage of me moving around these low-lying kind of ground cover plants and trying to get that shape to work. And then I took a little break from that to work on a little garden over here. I did put down a low-lying fence at first just to get the shape down, but then I replaced it with the picket fence that I think came with Perfect Patio stuff. I really enjoy that pack for a lot of its backyard stuff, and I thought that this wood tone on this fence just worked perfectly, so I thought I would throw that in there. I also got rid of those rocks because I opted for more pathway here to the garden space, and I went into debug and live edit and I pulled out a bunch of different plants to grow there, and then when I moved my playtester sims in here, I had them plant all of those and take care of them, and that was a lot of work. So definitely recommend having a gardener if you're going to live on this lot, because there's just so much to do, and all of the plants on top of that really could slow you down a little bit, if you know what I mean. But we have more landscaping going in because I just love me some landscaping, and we just fill up this entire lot with all of these low-lying plants and bushes and all of the same flowers because I wanted everything to kind of match the surrounding areas. I believe I also throw in some of that big chunky lavender maybe towards the other side of the back porch area, but here is where I'm kind of mapping out where the terrain paint is going to go for the back here. And I also did add a lot more stuff over here, just a lot more decoration inside of the garden, but I'm not sure if you will see all of that on camera or not, because this took me a very long time on and off just to work with, between working and trying to figure out when I was going to work on the shell. I took a little break to start on the shell, and then I turned out not liking it, so I had to bulldoze it, and then I had to place it again and again on different lots until I could finally figure it out. But it took me a very long time, and it was quite the headache. So coming back and forth from that one to this one, I had to kind of, it was a process. What am I going to say? And this video is also extremely long, so My apologies for the length of this video. I just didn't really know how to cut it down in a way that made sense. So I did try to cut up as much of the redundant footage as I possibly could. I believe I didn't show all of the bathrooms, for example, but most of the footage I kept in here. And here you'll see I am doing more of this pathway just all the way down to the entrance. And I also decided to include the horse ranch sign so that your sim can go straight to horse competitions from this lot using that signboard instead of having to travel all the way to the horse training lot in Chestnut Ridge and then using the board there. I thought that would be, pretty handy. If you're here all the time taking care of the business, you wouldn't want to have to travel away from your business and leave it to send one of your sims and their horse over to do a competition. So I thought that would come in handy. I also got that from Little Simsy because in her off the grid challenge, she has one of those boards and she sends the husband of that family to go do competitions all the time, and he leaves right from home, and I thought that was a really nifty idea. Here you'll see I'm finishing up the wallpaper in the kitchen. I tried to just keep it really simple in the dining space area because the kitchen itself has that very busy floor tile that I think came with either for rent or another recent pack. And then the bathroom in the hallway over here, I just put the wallpaper down so that I would have it down there. And I actually liked the blue tile on the wall, so I kept it. And then here in the living room, we're going with more of a pinky tone. So I pulled out this rug here from Horse Ranch to put under where the couches go. And then I also pulled out the coffee table later on. But we are going to be back in the kitchen, and we have all of the kitchen clutter stuff ready to go. So we have the sink with the dishes in it. We have the grocery bag that you can pull groceries from and order groceries from. We have a little utensil cup over here next to the stove. And then I wanted to pull out the scale. I did have to size it down one click just to make it fit better. I also wanted to use a lot of these canisters, so I used the move objects on cheat, and then I moved them to the half wall, and from there is where I changed all of the swatches so that it looked like all different things inside of those containers, which I love that. That is so cool. We also have some carrots in a jar over there for some reason. We have a spice rack. We have cutting board. We have the oven mitts that I did have to use tool mod to raise up ever so slightly so that they wouldn't clip into the cutting board. And then I also have a kitchen timer and some plants over here on the half wall as well. Over here near the sink, I end up putting that coffee mug selection on like the hanger with the bowl. So I end up putting a coffee pot over there as well. Actually, I think I put a tea kettle because you can heat up water for either tea or coffee with the electric kettle that came with for rent, and I thought that would be a good option. So whether or not your sim wants coffee or tea or hot cocoa, they can select from any of those things with just some hot water. We also have a dishwasher. We have a little dish rack next to the sink, and then we have this open lunchbox your sims can grab food from, as well as the cookie jar you can grab a cookie from. Trying to figure out the rest of the lighting in this kitchen was a pain in the butt, but I think I used just the hanging lights from Businesses and Hobbies above the island, and then above the big dining room table I placed this very grand chandelier, and I put a little selection of salt and pepper and a decorative bowl on the table as a centerpiece. And then these big curtains, these big white curtains that came with Businesses and Hobbies also, I really enjoy how they look just hanging on these enormous windows, so I wanted to repeat them on like all the windows in the dining room basically. So we have the two large windows and then also this small window that has the double curtains. I did use tool mod again to adjust the height of them just so that they would make a little bit of sense. I also sized them down a smidge because they were just a little bit too big, and I think that worked out pretty well in the end. Thank goodness for the tool mod is all I can say, because I would be lost. Every time I need to change just the tiniest little bit of size or detail, it comes in so handy. There's our coffee table that you will have seen for a brief second, and then we're going to jump back outside. As you can see, I was really putting off the living room. It was so large, and I just didn't know if I had it in me to complete the living room yet and just not have it look like an enormous empty space. And honestly, it still is pretty much an enormous empty space. But I had to level with myself and understand that not everybody's living room is going to be super crowded, especially if they are all so busy with the business and school and gardening and horse competitions. Like, their living room isn't necessarily going to be full of stuff. They're going to be spending most of their time out here. So I had to kind of imagine that and give myself a little bit of credit and try not to dwell a little bit, but we're over here in the garden, and I'm placing these lavenders and all of the sunflowers, and I do have to rearrange them quite a few times to get them exactly where I wanted them. And then I pulled out some fruits and vegetables and herbs, and I just placed them as much in a line as I possibly could, and it did take a little fiddling after I had my sim plant all of these, because a lot of them needed to be moved around a little bit and moved forward, and just so that everybody could get to the fruits and vegetables and actually water them and harvest them. I put them a little close to the edge of the fence and the sunflowers. I didn't realize they had such a large footprint that the sims couldn't get around, so that was my bad, but I learned and I evolved, and we're okay now. So hopefully you enjoyed that. But imagine all of those plants are planted, because in the live mode footage and the screenshots, you will see all of those plants have been planted and they are thriving and they are doing so well. Now we're over here back on the front porch though, and we have these benches going in. Like I said, we have some plants for decoration. I think I also used an end table with a little lantern light on it. I think also from Perfect Patio and backyard stuff. And then just a little flowering plant in a pot because I needed to fill up some more space on that table. And the rug, which is my favorite from Laundry Day, I put that over there because it definitely looks like an outdoor rug. I also wanted to include a little space with some rocking chairs, maybe when the parents get a little older and they want to hang out on their front porch and just rock in their chairs and look at their horse and look at their garden and enjoy some music from their little radio over here on the table. There's some flowers. There's also a bunch of gardening stuff. So I put a bunch of like empty potted plants and some potting soil all spread throughout, and then a lot of them in the garden area itself. Also this hose that looks like it's mounted to the fence. I thought that that was a nice touch because obviously you would definitely want to hose super close to all of your plants if you had to water all of them. And here in the living room is where I'm picking out the wood tone on these bookshelves, but in screenshots they looked more purple to me, and I didn't really enjoy how that made the rest of the room look because that's not the color scheme I was going for. So I did have to change them, and of course that was after I added the clutter, and my clutter disappeared when I went to change the swatch. I don't know why. Luckily there was only like 1 or 2 items on those shelves, so it's not that big of a deal, but again, I was all over the place, so I didn't even notice until I was looking at the screenshots and said, hey, didn't I put some clutter there? But it is what it is. Sims will be Sims. And also, I put a bunch of these curtains on that came with Horse Ranch, and you'll see the one is a little bit darker than all the rest. I don't know why that is. That has perfect lighting. There is no rhyme or reason for it to not be beautifully lit up like the rest of the curtains are in this room, but again, we do what we can with what we're given, and it is Sims after all, so what exactly are you going to do? Here's that little bit of clutter that I placed on the bookshelf that is no longer going to be there when you get to the house on the gallery because it got deleted. I don't know why, but we're adding some more tapestries, and around this time I think is when I was thinking, man, we really don't have a lot of horse pictures or a lot of like ranchy pictures. We have some from Strangerville, and then the rest of them are pretty much all from Horse Ranch. And I just thought that we needed more in this home. So I did the entryway. I did a little end table with a mirror and a little vase of sunflowers. I thought that was fitting. And then some other plants. I hung some clothes on a mudroom rack, and then also added this little skull above the doorway. And on the other side, I believe I used one of the like ranch signs, just the little star up there because I thought that was nice. And then we're going to get to the kitchen, and in a little bit I will be pulling more images, more pictures off the gallery that other Sims have painted that the creators have lovingly decided to upload on there for us all to use because they really saved my butt. I didn't know how to fill up all that empty wall space, so that really helped to grab a big wall of all of this artwork off the gallery and just place it in the yard so that I could freely do my thing with decorating the house. Over here at the bar, you'll see I am adding some bottles of wine, also a decanter and a little glass jar. I thought that was nice. So this is the whole reason why I wanted to put this shelf here in the first place, because I wanted a lot of space to fit all of my little clutter pieces that I wanted to add. And we also have a lovely chair from Cats and Dogs over here by the bar because that's a nice little sitting area, and also some empty picture frames, which I assume will get filled up by the family who lives here. But now we are in the little backyard section, and we're going to put down our picnic table, and we're going to put down some rocks from Riviera Retreat Kit, and we're just going to kind of scatter them about and put some terrain paint underneath them so that it looks very intentional and very on purpose. Maybe this is part of the old walkway that they just couldn't get these pieces up and then decided they liked them anyway, so they just kept them. But we have followed it up with some terrain paint, and then I believe I add a little bit more fencing and also some planter boxes back here. I assume that the mother of this family also enjoys a lot of planting, plus if she grows a lot of apples, I think her horse's favorite treat is apples, so it is good to have all of those apples on hand when your horsey needs a little reminding on how to behave. And then over here we have more flowers and more trellises and stuff. I just wanted to kind of fill up that empty space. And I think it works out pretty well. There's really nothing going on there, but it was like too small for a window, but like too big to just leave it there all on its own. And again, the builder's block was very real. So that was a bit of a challenge, but I think that this whole home altogether came together really nice in the end. It just took me a super long time to get there, which is why this video is like more than 40 minutes long. And if you've stuck around this long, I really appreciate it. So thank you so much. And I would like you to let me know in the comments which part of this video annoyed you the most to watch back, because I'm watching it back going, man, I really wish I hadn't like shown that much footage of this particular thing, because like it was unnecessary. But when you are recording and editing, these things happen and you either miss it or you forget it, or you think that it's going to be a shorter video than it is. And it just never is. So I appreciate all of the messages on my videos, because it really helps me out to determine what you guys like to see. And then here you'll see I pulled out that big wall of paintings that are done from Chestnut Ridge. I will include the gallery ID for this item because I really think they came in so handy. They're very colorful, they're very fun, but they fit in almost every single room. So I did throw at least one of those paintings, I'm pretty sure, in every single room except the kids' room, like the teenagers' room and the toddler's room, because for those that didn't really apply, they had plenty of decorations in their rooms. I always have the most fun with the teens' room. This is our gamer teenager, so she has the comfy gamer setup. She has the desk and the chair and the computer, and then I throw on a bunch of clutter onto her desk. And I also wanted to include the pegboard on here, so I did put the pegboard on the back of the wall. And then I pulled out like the custom cabinets, cluttered them up with a bunch of stuff as well, because I really wanted it to feel like lived in, and like this teenager was a normal teenager who was still messy even though they wanted to be a gamer. And gamers arguably have to be pretty organized in order to constantly be streaming, because you need to be looking at what everybody in the chat is saying, and also watching what you're doing, and also typing, and also trying to play your game uninterrupted, but really you're only being interrupted. So I think that this teen is kind of all over the place, but she embraces it. On her end table, she has a little game controller and also a water bottle. On the opposing end table, we have a wax melter that came with Businesses and Hobbies. I put that in her room as well. And we have a candle tray on her end table as her like bedside light. Over here, we have a dresser from Businesses and Hobbies. I also pulled out the lit up mirror from Kids Room Stuff. And then we have some gaming lights behind the bed as well. I thought that that was very important and they looked really cool. And then I love these sconces from Paranormal Stuff, and I haven't added them recently, so I thought putting them in here would really work out. After I changed the wall color to blue, I had to quickly change a bunch of other colors of things in this room, because I didn't like how the pegboard was blue, but also the walls were blue. You know what I mean? Thought it was a little too much. We also added some pretty bohemian curtains to either window, and then the rug from the Comfy Gamer kit I sized up enough to put under the bed. And then we have some video games and also a plushie. The video games are sitting on top of the dresser, and so is this little assortment of like makeup and a change cup and a rose and a vase. I just thought it looked so pretty. I also cluttered up a bunch of these little shelves, so you're only going to see a little bit of footage of that. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but there's a bunch of high school year stuff on there, and also some Love Struck things on there, the little toys like the axolotl. And then we're going to work on her bathroom. It comes together pretty quickly. I used the countertops from Horse Ranch and then the shower from Growing Together. We have our base game toilet, and then I pulled out a sink from, I believe, just Base Game, because I thought it looked really nice in here with the gold fixtures. And then this mirror with all these post-it notes on it, I imagine that the teen has to constantly leave little notes for herself so she remembers what like spirit day it is in high school or what she needs to get done that night so she doesn't get distracted by her game and just not complete any of her work. We also have some decals on the wall. I love these little cats that are like brushing their teeth and showering and stuff. So I thought that came out really cool. I wanted to make sure I decorated properly for this teen. We have some messy towels. We have a little soap assortment in the shower itself, and then we have the plunger from Bathroom Clutter Kit, also the toilet paper on the wall, a candle on the back of the toilet because I always do that, and also a little retainer next to the sink. Maybe the sim has to wear a retainer to bed, so she always keeps it in the bathroom here, sitting in like the astringent solution so that it stays nice and clean. Also some rugs on the floor you will have seen. Some are from high school years, and I believe the other one is from Bathroom Clutter Kit and that kitty cat swatch. I just think that's so much fun. One last little decal for the wall, and then we are adding my favorite bathroom light because it works so well in bathrooms. This little hallway came together pretty quick too. There's just a chest table and some artwork. There's a little rug under the chest table that came with Love Struck, and I just used Tool Mod to size it up enough that it would fit underneath that table really nicely. We have a painting from Strangerville going up on this wall, and then I tried to throw in as many like plants and decorations as I possibly could. I also wanted to pick out a little bench seat to go underneath this painting here. I figure you would want a regular seat in the hallway as well, not just the chest tables, and then some more tapestries. And then we're going to work on the parents' room. I have pulled out the bed from Cats and Dogs instead because I thought that it looked really nice in here, and I don't really get to use that one super often. I felt like having a more old-fashioned bed made a lot more sense. And then of course the lamps from Horse Ranch, we added a little tufted ottoman from Cats and Dogs as well. And I went with this gingham wallpaper just because, again, I never get to use it, and it is pretty busy, but it's like a subtle busy because it's gray. So I think I can get away with it a little bit in here. We also have the rug from Horse Ranch, adding one little wall painting from the gallery, and then the hanging plant. And then over here on the wall, I wanted to add this wagon wheel with the flowers on it. That is pretty much the only decoration for that room. I tried to, again, keep it very simple, and I also had no real choice in keeping it simple because I just had nothing else to put in there. They had everything they needed. Here's their bathroom, though. It's a little bit more luxurious. The wallpaper is from Spa Day, and they still have a bunch of different assorted things from the Bathroom Clutter Kit, and I just tried to position them together so it's like mom has her oils and skincare stuff, dad has his skincare stuff, maybe cologne and her perfume. I think that it all just works out really nicely in the end. We also have our classic bathroom clutter stuff. We have the plunger, soap pump, toothpaste cup, the candle on the back of the toilet, some extra rolls of toilet paper, the whole thing, and a little medicine cabinet behind the toilet as well, because you definitely need that. I also added some more rugs from Bathroom Clutter Kit, and then I also threw on this little wall decoration that came with Horse Ranch. It's kind of like a wood carving type of situation, so I really wanted to put that in here as well. I did not include the horse swatch. I thought that was a little too on the nose, but that is it for the parents' bathroom. And now we're onto the toddler's room. Again, the Storybook Nursery Kit. This is what I ended up really diving into. So I pulled out all of the furniture items. I really love this rug with the circus on it. So that kind of set the tone for the rest of the room. Very colorful, very cluttered, lots of stuff going on. This toddler just doesn't really like to leave his room. He just kind of hangs out in here, plays his little games and hangs out with mom and destroys his books and plays with his stuffies, and that's, it's a toddler life. What are you gonna do? Also love this base game wallpaper with the roses on top. I thought it was really nice, and again, I don't use that one often either because it kind of reminds me of a grandma house, but maybe this room originally was one of the parents' rooms when they were a kid, and now they have their children at the house, so they are giving that room to their toddler, and I thought that was a nice little touch. But we have lots of blue and yellow happening in there. It's very quick and very, very cute. Also, one more bathroom. I'm only going to show you a little bit, but I did put down some kids' towels. I sized down one of the robes to be for the kids, kept the other robe large. Maybe that's like mom's robe or something. And then we have more of these shower caddies going in. I put in a little rubber duck on top of the ledge in the tub because I thought that was nice, and our bathroom clutter stuff, and just using Toolbod to move everything around. We have a little tray of bath salts, we have a nightlight, and a little toddler potty over here by the door. And I believe this is where I add the little tiny like bookshelf thing that mounts to the wall for the kid to use while he's potty training. I thought that would be a nice little touch just over here next to the toddler potty. So I did have to use Toolmod to lower it down a little bit. It just automatically goes way too high for me, and I needed to have a lower down bookshelf so that I could imagine that the kid likes to rip the books out and like play with them and pretend to read them. Now we are up in the loft finally, so we are nearing the end of this video, but you will see I am stacking very carefully, just using the 9 key to raise up and move around these hay bales. These are all from Debug and Live Edit, so your sim cannot interact with those, but I have also pulled out some ones that are interactive for your sims to sit on. For these ones though, I just placed a bunch of different like fertilizers and plant foods and stuff on top so that it made a little bit of sense. Here are some of those sittable hay bales. I thought that was nice. And also this Debug Live Edit lantern that I believe came with Life and Death. I put that on top of one of the hay bales, and we have a lovely picnic blanket / woohoo blanket, whatever you decide it should be. It is up to you. And we have the rest of the home right here, and this is where the sun is just coming up for the day, and you can see it's just casting a very funny shadow over the rest of the home, but you'll see the big red barn over there. It is wide open, it is ready for the day, and in a little bit we will see the horse come out of there, the one that belongs to the family who lives here and runs this business. So I really hope that you enjoyed this one, and if you did, please be sure to like and subscribe. Let me know what you enjoyed. Maybe let me know what you would like to see next, or what kind of genre you'd like to see next, because I am open to suggestions. And also don't forget to check out Little Simsy's fundraiser page and also her Twitch channel so that you can keep up with the fundraiser for this year, because we're doing pretty well, and I'm very proud of everything that she has gotten done this month and for all of the months. So thank you so much, and I will talk to you guys next time. Bye guys.